So my focus at Annenberg the whole time was using media to create social change, but what was fascinating in those years was the way that media and technology were changing, and a lot of interesting stuff was happening, both in the field and from a scholarly perspective. I go back to Annenberg once in a while, and I still have that feeling of my first week. The floors where the professors were seem sacred, but you feel the history of the place when you're in Annenberg. I always felt that very, very strongly. You're really in the center of at least the scholarly media universe. So I was impressed by it. It was my home, but I never stopped feeling like I was kind of in the temple. I had always wanted to return to the field. From Annenberg. I'd always had a vision of myself primarily as a practitioner. So I left the academy in 2010, not sure what I would do. And through a series of unusual events, found myself 2 months later on the ground in Uganda, a country I'd never been to, working with anti-corruption organizations to do some kind of guerrilla media work before an upcoming election. And though it was a completely foreign land, I found actually the tools that I acquired at Annenberg had very well outfitted me to do work in the field there. I trained as a media ethnographer, actually with John Jackson, who just started at that time at Annenberg. And the lens of ethnography and the history of media industries around the world allowed me to very quickly kind of put some techniques that I had learned in the abstract into action in the field. The fascinating thing about working in the developing world is, in the media sphere here, you're always trying to cut through the noise. There you kind of get to fill the silence. Right? So many people have been left behind by this deepening digital divide that's going on in the developing world. When more than half the world lives on less than $3 a day, they don't have a smartphone. They're not on YouTube. They're not, right? They're not on media platforms that we're familiar with in the West. And in these environments, a little bit of information can go a really long way toward changing lives. We're focused on that, reaching kind of really big numbers of people with that little bit of information that can kind of help change their lives, change their minds, change their behaviors, and decrease suffering. So some really remote villages don't have any screens whatsoever. And when people were trying to go there with mobile cinema, what they found was that showing movies at night kind of left women behind. Women and children weren't comfortable going out at night. So we designed something we call Village Video, which is a solar-powered, motorcycle-mounted micro-cinema. It can roll up into a village on the back of a Boda motorcycle, flip open the screen, go in the shadow of a tree, and play impactful media.
Ene none taxi kiruno kelo ene baro ya tin wan nene amma dong ena dong nge dong na nena gima begi ye kenyo be da sira dong fonyene gilu wara bene.
I finished at Annenberg a little over a decade now, and the connections that I made there have continued. The last time I ever saw Paul Maceris, who was my mentor at Annenberg, we had lunch. This was a couple of years ago, about a year before he died, and he took me out for lunch. And afterwards, I said, I'm sorry that I'm not a professor. I know that's kind of what you trained me for. That's what I was supposed to do. And he just said, that's absurd. What you're doing is exactly where you're supposed to be. And that meant a lot to me, that support was there, and that Annenberg was thinking outside the box, and that the heart was there. So that was a good way to go out. We used to have our office about a 15-minute walk that way, but we wanted to be kind of more in the thick of things. And we really are here. It's such a cool neighborhood. You'll see the Jay-Z train kind of runs along right in front of the office, which is where Rapper Jay-Z is. Media is an increasingly important player in our future. The information that people have is going to be essential to the future that we have in the West or in the developing world. To be an active participant in the making of that future, that's kind of what drives me.